Bethany, hi.
Hi, hello.
Thanks. Well, so I'll introduce myself, let you introduce yourself, then we can kind of give a brief intro, and then we can get into it. So I'm Alec, the editor of Homepros, and we're a digital media company, and we cover the news in the HVAC industry. We write about regulation, trends, acquisition, things like that. And today we're gonna have a conversation with Bethany from AnswerForce. So I'll let you introduce yourself, and then we can get into it.
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Bethany, and I work with AnswerForce. We are a 24/7 live answering service, real people, and we have an amazing tech toolkit to help make sure that all of our contractors, owners, business owners are able to make the most of every single call. And we are fully remote, which is amazing. We can be in so many different parts of the country and still be able to provide a great service for our clients. And so, as an example, I am here in Austin, Texas today.
Nice, amazing. Um, so yeah, so I know we wanted to kind of sort of touch on a number of topics within the context of of what you guys are doing. Obviously, we'll touch on sort of kind of missing calls, the why behind it, what happens, how to identify gaps, how to plug them, some seasonal topics, and then maybe if we have some time, we could touch on speed to lead and some things around that. So I guess if
Absolutely.
you're cool with it, I get really just to kind of begin. I think maybe a good starting point would be like obviously inbound calls are just a huge part of contractors' businesses. I mean, I forgot I don't have an exact percentage off the top of my head, but it is a meaningful chunk of revenue that comes through the phone versus all
Yes.
the other channels. And so, um, I guess kind of open-ended sort of when contractors miss calls, do you notice that there are some patterns for when those happen? Like, is it, whether it's certain times of day, certain times of year? And then I'm curious about sort of the main common reasons, kind of why you see that happening.
Absolutely. A lot of people don't even realize that they're missing calls. Sometimes they'll call and ask for support because I think I'm missing calls. I'm not sure, and they don't even know. 80% of the time that people call, they're not going to leave a voicemail. So sometimes business owners will call us and they'll say, "Well, I don't think I'm missing too many calls because I don't have a lot of voicemails." But people are not going to leave voicemail most of the time. They're going to keep shopping and keep going. The data that we have from the calls that we take, we see a huge chunk of calls come in from 12 to 2, which 12 p.m. to 2 p.m., which makes sense. People are going on their lunch and that's when they have time to call, or maybe a stay-at-home parent is able to put the kids down for a midday nap, and that's when they can call. It's in these pockets of time that customers have. So another time that we see majority of our calls come in for the HVAC industry will be from 5 to 7 p.m.
Mhm.
That's going to, it's natural. People are getting off of work, they get home. Oh my gosh, it's still making that noise. I think I have a leak now. Maybe they've been gone all day, or they're making dinner, getting ready to put the kids down for bed. And that's when they can start doing some research.
Mhm.
There's also, a lot of information when it comes to people visiting your website after hours. So after 7 p.m., you think maybe we would get more calls, but a lot of people realize and know that, okay, no one's probably going to be at the office right now. If I call, it might be considered an emergency.
Mhm.
So they're on your website at that point. And that's where chat comes in, and having a proactive chat to engage with that customer is going to be really key. So 5 to 7, 12 to 2 are the largest chunks of time. And I would say a lot of times it's when they have that pocket of time when they're
Mhm.
doing that research. So when you were saying, when and how do customers know if they're
Sure.
missing calls? Yeah, it's a lot of time it's the I have no idea. I think
Yeah.
we're doing good. I think
Sure.
we're doing fine, but I do see a lot of HVAC owners also really struggle to make their operation 24/7
Mhm.
because they don't know how to have that coverage without having their team on call, especially in the hotter seasons. They're worried about the rotation and making sure that they're not burning out their team, because if you've been on site since 6 a.m. and then you get a call at 11 p.m. that night, it's going to be really exhausting. So having some type of cycle and system to help support that, I think, is really key, and where we see a lot of the really, great businesses, how they're able to scale is they have a system in place. So,
Yeah.
and I know we're going to touch on that too,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, no, 100%. So I think maybe that's a kind of a good segue because, like, okay, so the way I think about it is sort of understanding what the problem is kind of like step one, and then there's sort of like, okay, like mapping out the entire situation, and then identifying like, what are the journeys that people are taking to find us through different channels. Obviously, phone being kind of a main part of this
mm,
conversation, but understanding that and then being able to sort of plan and tactically kind of optimize each one of those things. And so, aka building systems, building a process, whatever.
yeah.
Um, how do you guys think about that? Like when you're talking to contractors, when you're talking to owners, like, and you're kind of doing, I don't know if this is the right terminology, but if you're doing sort of like a quote audit kind of on their processes, or when you're beginning to work with them, like, what is that conversation like when regarding understanding like the journey that customers are taking so that you can begin sort of optimizing it and making sure that everything's tight.
Yeah, it's important we understand their ability or how they have their their comfort plans, their preventative maintenance packages,
Mhm.
as well as emergency. So we'll ask them, are you 24/7? Yes, we are. Great, we can be 24/7 with you. Understanding, um, sure, we can get into asking how many trucks that they might have, but that is not super important to us. What we really want to know is, who do you have at your office right now, and how do you want that flow to look like? Because CSRs are going to be able to really get down in the nitty gritty, do more sales. And so for us, we don't always get into the nitty gritty, but we can find ways to anchor in those
Mhm.
preventative maintenance packages in those conversations. So just understanding, what is your setup like now? Are you 24/7? What are your goals? What are you struggling with the most right now? And then figuring out how we can build that into their script. So a lot of times people will call in for emergency situations, but sometimes people don't know. Maybe they just bought a home and they want to make sure that they stay on top of it, or their system is making a weird noise. Sometimes people are going to be scared to call because they know
Sure.
it's going to be expensive.
Right.
So when we're speaking to them, just understanding, what are you currently doing in your business? How are you, able to be 24/7, or is that one of your goals? And then we can talk about how in the call flow we're able to, not only help them and qualify if it's an emergency, or if it's for maybe something else that we can schedule, an estimate or somebody to come out to their house and take a peek before we make recommendations. Because sometimes people want us to try and transfer right over to their team right away versus us kind of qualifying that. But then we have some owners who are like, no, I want you to be asking all the questions. I want to know if I don't want to speak to them unless they're the homeowner. And
Mhm.
so it really just depends on how that owner wants to integrate our systems into what they're doing, because we can get into qualification of that lead. And some people say, try to reach me first. If I don't answer, or try to reach my CSRs first. If they don't answer, then go through kind of the lead qualification of that, and send it over to my team, or schedule an estimate or a follow up. So it really just depends on their goals. It really depends on where they're at and what their struggles might be. And those are really vulnerable questions to ask owners. It's really personal, because in that moment, I know that they have a little bit of, "Ah, this is my pride and my joy. This is everything." And it's hard to say, I need help. It's hard to reach out to a third party, reach out to a vendor and say, I think I'm missing calls. I'm
Mhm.
not able to convert these leads that are coming in. Well, it's because you're not picking up the phone. And
Right.
it's these small things, but um yeah, some pretty vulnerable questions,
Yeah.
I would say. Yeah.
No, 100%. And so I think so on the you mentioned sort of the scripting part of it, and I do
Mhm.
want to talk about the 24/7 part, but I'll get to that. As far as like actual call flow and quote scripting, um, what are those conversations usually like? Like when you help someone sort of, either develop them in the first place or sort
Mhm.
of tweak existing ones. Obviously, it depends on call type, whether, depending on what the specific call is.
Yeah.
I'm curious, do you have any input or insight on or into like the scripts that you guys are collaborating with contractors on, include X common things, or these are the things that really make some of the best ones. I guess maybe is the right way to word the question.
Absolutely. We have a whole team of customer service representatives
Mm,
who will do the onboarding, and we have a myriad of templates.
mhm,
And some, like I mentioned, some people want us to have more conversation and dialogue with the client or the potential client, and some people don't.
mhm,
So it really depends on how we can kind of show the value of, here, let's try it, let's this is template that we have, that it's tried and true, it works really well. It might have some basics in it, but we also mention your preventative maintenance package. We're not selling it, we're not encouraging
mhm,
them to say yes right now, but say, hey, just so you know, we do have a preventative maintenance package that our team can talk to you about. Are you interested in learning more? Yes.
mhm,
Okay, great. So when the person that we patch the call to, or transfer the call to, or calls them back, they've already heard it, and it's not uncommon language. They've heard about their family comfort plan.
mhm,
Um, so we have, just over the years, I mean, we've been in the industry for, we've been doing this since, you know, 2000, and we've learned a lot of things the hard way. Like,
mhm,
sometimes we getting too complex in the conversation can get us into a situation where then owners think, why didn't you convert this lead? Or, and we don't focus on that. We really focus on trying to qualify the lead and get it to the right sales team member who can upsell, who can talk more about different features or different things that they would recommend with the system if they're doing a replacement. But yeah, with the templates, we have some that will work really well for smaller locations, and then we have some that will work for people who have multiple locations. And maybe in that call, depending on how they're doing their marketing, maybe if they're doing it by the geolocation, we can ask the client what zip code they're in, and then we can make sure it gets to the right team. So there's the basics of name, number, message, what are you calling about? Or we can get into the nitty gritty. And we really try our hardest to really educate our team about the industry,
mhm,
understanding how does the industry make majority of their money?
mhm,
Because we see ourselves as consultants. We are experts at answering the call, qualifying the lead, and
mhm.
getting it over to the right person. But you are the expert at your business.
Right.
And so in those conversations, we really teach our team to have that approach, to take time to remember that this is this person's livelihood, and our agents take so much pride in that, and they understand that the person that's calling in, maybe it's an emergency, maybe it's not, but the customers probably had a bad experience somewhere along the line, or they called five other people. So your tone and how you answer that, and how you kind of lead into the call flow matters.
Mhm.
The call flow has to make sense too. You
Right.
can't just be, oh, okay, great. Thank you for calling. Let me
Right.
go ahead and just get you over to somebody. Hold on. Oh, may I ask who I have the pleasure of speaking with? Sometimes owners, it's funny because sometimes people will tell us, no, I don't want you to gather their name and number right away. Just do this. Just figure out what they're calling about. I can handle this call in 2 minutes. And it's like, or we could slow down and really focus on the customer and take
Mhm,
time to say, oh, who do I have the pleasure of speaking with today? Oh, thank you so much, Amanda. I've got your name, just to make sure I have your last name spelt right. What's the best number to reach you at? And sometimes people don't want us to gather that, but but the value of doing that is, if that person is juggling five different things, you got their kids screaming, maybe their other work phone is ringing, they drop and the phone hangs up. We're going to have that leads information that we can still send to the owner, and they can call them back and help really close that lead. So it's we really try to make sure that we're able to gather the customer's information first, focus on a great experience and not creating confusion on that call.
mhm.
So that way it's a great transfer to the CSRs, or once we get the appointment booked, it's really clear what they can expect. And we partner with the owner. So we'll get on a video call and share our screen and let them know, this is what we have built for you so far. We've taken a look at your website. We see you do this, this, and this. Were you considering adding in web chat? This is how many you get included. Let's talk about that. So um, I could go on and on about that. Scripts
Yeah,
really excite me.
yeah. I mean, look, I think to your point, there are a few things I think that you mentioned sort of are kind of some of the key stones to that, which is obviously there's simplicity, keeping things simple. There's yes, gathering the basic information, but they're spending a little bit of time investing in rapport up front. There's structure depending on call type, obviously, things like that. When you were talking about, or when you're talking about qualifying,
Mhm.
um, is there something that you notice CSRs in general maybe don't do as much as they should, or as far as qualifying calls and qualifying leads that is maybe a good kind of nugget to know?
Yeah, I think people get really wrapped up in price shoppers. And if
Okay.
somebody calls in and they're immediately, "Oh, well, what's the price? I want to know the price." And in that moment, it's the eye roll, like, "Ugh, this person just cares about price. I'm not going to be able to get past it." And they don't slow down and take time to listen and ask some questions and be curious, be genuinely curious in that conversation, and better understand this person might be really focused on price because they know they have a limited amount of funds available. This is what they're expecting. They don't know that you have the ability to um, connect them with some financing groups. So when it comes to the person who calls in and they just want to know price, I think we discount and we don't get curious on those calls, or just say, absolutely, look, I'd be happy to help you. Can you tell me a little bit about the problem that you're facing today? Tell me about what's going on. Because when you start there versus, well, look, this is our price here. Okay, great. I'm not interested. They may not even need an emergency call out.
Mhm,
That just might be what they know or understand based on a friend's experience. So, too many times, I think we don't get curious and we don't continue the conversation. And that is what stops the conversation.
mhm. Yeah, and I think maybe a part of that too is framing it like as yes, addressing the fact that yes, you're going to give them a price, or like maybe you will, but like that gathering that information up front, or the more information you have up front, can
Mhm.
better inform whatever it is from a pricing standpoint that you're going to follow that up with. And so kind of framing it that way sort of
Right.
potentially kind of takes that, I don't want to say the objection of like, but it kind of takes the dynamic and it kind of flips it, I guess. uh,
Yeah, objections are just opportunities
right.
and they come in so many different ways. And if a customer has concerns, there's a reason they have those concerns. People make decisions based off of fear sometimes, or our
Mhm.
experiences. They shape how we're going to ask questions or follow up. I've
Right.
had I've had tough experiences with contractors over the years, and it burned me and it really changed my perception. People are going to come into my home. This is their sacred space. So how
Right.
can you create some safety and reassurance on that call? Um, and really help educate the customer, but listen first. Yeah.
Right. Right. Um, there's obviously in the HVAC business, there's a huge, seasonal component. During, for cooling season during the summer, for instance, demand is obviously a lot greater than it is in these sort of in between shoulder seasons. Um, how do you guys kind of think about? Obviously, I know one of the answers, of course, is kind of this is why you guys exist, is to kind of help with capacity. But I guess topically speaking, like
Yeah.
when you're having conversations with folks about sort of gearing up for these spikes in demand, like, is there anything that stands out to you as something that is kind of a good takeaway for people to kind of keep in mind as the season sort of approaches?
Yeah, absolutely. Systems, creating
Mhm,
systems won't fail. So
mhm,
having a plan in place, being proactive is really important. I think, trying to think ahead, because when you're already in mid-season, you're in it. You
yeah,
can't, you're getting what you're getting and your techs are really busy. Um, but being in, when you organize your preventative maintenance, in a way where it kind of follows along with what you can expect in the summer season, that's important. But creating systems so that way you can have on-call team members. Too many times people don't know how to create an on-call calendar, or they say, oh, hey, can you take the lines this week tonight, and it's, I hope they answer. And most times the operations manager of the location may not even know if they're actually answering the phone. And I've seen that because there's no transparency, there's no tracking. So having tracking in place to help make sure that that's actually what's happening, um, because we have a feature, a really cool feature where it's an on-call calendar, and if somebody gets sick, somebody can just go in and change it out. So when it's an emergency call or after hours, we're not dialing out to that person, it's swapped out. So you should be able to quickly be able to change and have good communication with your team. If you're not going to be able to be available and be on call, that's really some
Yeah.
missed business, some missed opportunities. So having a system in place to be prepared for the after hour emergencies, because that's what's happening in the summertime. Things It's getting too hot. The system is just it's taking on too much. And I can't think about a time where my AC has not worked throughout the other times of the year. It's the summertime. It's just the heat, the brutal heat. And with climate change and all of these different things that we're all seeing and experiencing, it's just going to get worse. So you should be able to have your team know what they can expect that week, that month, so they can make plans, because they need time off too. They're going to burn out. They're going to leave. They're going to go to another job that might pay them 50 cents more, but maybe they have a really clear schedule when it comes to an on-call. So really incorporating your teams in that plan as well, and communicating that is so important. When we onboard clients, we make sure, great, are you going to be having conversations with the technician so they know that they're going to get calls on these days and times? Because sometimes when we dial out, they're like, "Ugh, why are you calling me? I'm not on call." You
Right.
are though.
Right. That makes me think, like, as far as when you're developing an on-call calendar, like, is
Mhm.
there I know you guys obviously kind of do this on your end, but if someone's doing that just internally, or already has one, like, what is a good structure of that? Like, is there an example that comes to mind of like a very
Yeah.
simple, basic structure of an on-call? Like, this person, I don't know. Actually, I'll let you take that, because I know that's kind of a broad
No,
question.
I think I will say, even at AHR, there were a lot of discussion and conversations around that,
Yeah.
because the big thing was burnout. If you have, during the summer seasons, there's the preventative maintenance follow-up. And so you're checking in with these customers, you have these pre-scheduled appointments. Some technicians are like, "Oh, I don't want to do that. I want to go and do a full replacement, or I want to do a bigger job." But there's lots of opportunity for you to kind of slow down when you have these calls. And so I've seen people, what they'll do is they'll have a rotation. Okay, for this week you're going to be on these follow-up calls, and we're going to have these four team members in Monday through Friday, and they're going to be on call. We're going to have this person on call for one night, and then so I've seen them where they'll then rotate out of handling the follow-ups and into the on call, and showing up for work for the day. But if you have somebody who has gotten a call in the middle of the night, them showing up at 7 a.m. the next day may not be the best plan. So some people will have, let's say, like two or three techs on schedule. And so if one person calls out, they're still going to be good, but that person who's doing follow ups could probably jump in as needed. Um, I've seen also some people, for those busy seasons.
Mhm.
There's no shortage of work, but sometimes if it's a Friday and they've been on back to back on calls all week, they'll give them the day. Let them rest, get a long weekend in, or schedule long weekends so that way the person can, take some time with their family, because they've been up for who knows how long throughout the week. So I've seen that be a really popular one. Um, so that would be something I would.
Yeah. No, it makes total sense. And so I think, switching to the 24/7 topic, you touched on it earlier. Like, obviously, if a contractor, if a business can and is willing, like, can't afford, like, a really, a staff to be sort of actually 24/7. That's one thing.
Yeah.
Vast majority of the time, the only way to do 24/7, tell me if I'm wrong, but the only, like, literal way to pull off 24/7 is by engaging some sort of, service to kind of assist with that, and to supplement, and to support that. Um, what Can you talk to me about how that actually works from, like, a logistics standpoint? So, let's say you have a company of X employees, excuse me, none of the internal employees are on call 24/7, but
Hmm.
after 8 p.m. or whatever it might be,
Right.
that's when it switches over to here's what we're using. But then when people show up the next morning, you have someone who sort of manages the call center or other people within the call center. They want to know what, if anything, kind of happened overnight. How
Mhm.
does that actually work? Like, what's sort of the
Yeah. We
behind that?
want there to be transparency and people to know when transfers are happening. So, depending, we recommend it because if you are in a if you're in a position where you have no idea what happened or you have to log into your portal to figure out what happened, we missed a mark there. So, a lot of times we'll have these, we call them delivery methods. So, anytime that we send over the call, it could be any new or existing client. We can send it in a text message and in an email to whoever. It can be a list of people, it can be a group email that you give us. And so, a lot of times, the operations leaders or office managers will want to be on that delivery method.
Mhm.
And that way, they know, okay, yep, they went out, they were able to service it. Let me follow up. Let me look at the notes on that job. And another part of it is sometimes people don't answer their phone if they're on call. It happens. It's a deep sleep. It's been a long week. So we have the option to have, if this person doesn't answer, we're going to dial out to these next two people. And some owners will have it to where I'm on the third dial out. So if my two team members haven't dialed out and it gets to me, I know we've got a problem. Maybe they're on another job, but some people will kind of add that fail safe so that way that customer does get immediate help or an answer right away depending on the situation. But yeah, being able to include them every time that we're sending a message through on an email. And what's beautiful is a lot of our clients we integrate, so we can
Right.
integrate with so many different job management softwares, field management software. So when they, whatever settings they might have with that software, they can see when that call came in, who took it. Um, we can really put, it just depends on the software, but we can really push all of that call data in there. And I would say the delivery methods are the most transparent part. You can go into your portal for AnswerForce on our web app or our beautiful mobile app. I love it because when you're out in the van, you're at someone's home, you're not always behind a computer. Maybe you're doing ride alongs for the day as the operations leader. So, having our mobile app, you can see when a call comes in, you'll get a message and you'll be able to open it. You can listen to the call too. So, you can hear the transfer to that technician, make sure that they were able to, do a great job. Okay, wow, you sounded like you were, really asleep. But whenever we're, even what I love about it is if we have the customer on the line and we call the technician, most of the time we'll say, "Hey, I have so and so on the line. Their AC's out. It's an emergency." Whatever the follow up is that they want us to say to them, and then he'll say, "Okay, give me just a second." He can take a moment to take a drink of water. She can take a moment to take a drink of water, and then say, "Okay, transfer them over." Wow, you sound like you're really awake at 1 a.m. I know, right? So it's about that experience for the customer. We
Mhm.
don't want customers to know that we sleep,
Sure.
you
Sure.
know,
Of course.
that we need rest days too.
Right.
So yeah,
Yeah.
that would be what I would say.
Yeah. No, it's I think it's like technology is a big part of it too, is making sure that there are literally like systems in play, like physical or not physical, but like actual technological technology in place to be able to track that, measure it, see it all, have visibility and everything. So
Hmm.
I guess I know we got a couple minutes left. I guess maybe my last thing is this is kind of goes along with what we're talking about, but there is, critically important part of all these businesses is obviously this idea of speed to lead. And when someone calls in or someone puts in a chat inquiry on the website, whatever, I mean, there's tons
Yes,
of data that shows after a few minutes goes by. I mean, the conversion rates, I mean, while there's not zero, but they drop meaningfully compared to within the first, say, 5 minutes or so. From a call center standpoint, or just even open ended, like
yeah.
what's maybe something that you have kind of talked to a contractor about recently that you guys collectively kind of came away as like with like it was like a good takeaway of how people are optimizing for that, how they're doing it, or just something that you took away regarding speed to lead.
Absolutely. We're in a day and age where social media, the internet, it's created the need and want for immediate satisfaction.
That's right.
So, um, we we have So many different features. I would say one of the coolest things about what we're able to do is answer the call within the first couple of rings. Majority of the time, it's, 99.999% of the time, it's in the first ring.
Right.
And I've had some clients who will say, "Oh, I'm really worried because I don't want you to put people on holds." And we say, "No, we've got a model where someone is staffed all the time and we're watching that. That is a number that we're really, really honing in on our operations for our answering service. Is that is the number one priority. Are all of our calls being answered within that first ring?"
Mm,
And when I kind of dug into the question that he asked, he said, "I've just had some people where they'll put them on hold, um, where they'll call in and they'll hear hold music until they reach somebody because it's the middle of the night." And so we have an operations that, that's gone. When it comes to the speed to lead, I think I mentioned people are sometimes on your website and there's, your contact us form, or they can schedule an appointment. A lot of, maybe like 68% of those contact us forms, sometimes customers, they don't get a response back from business owners. 68% of them go unanswered.
mm,
So, what can we do to help improve that immediate satisfaction even in the middle of the night? As an example, we're able to, within 5 minutes, call that client who's filled out your form on your website. Um, when somebody comes and they're asking you a question, they want an answer right then and there. So just making sure that, you know, you're competitive in that you're able to pick up the phone right away. Because as I mentioned, people are calling over and over. They're not going to leave a voicemail. They're just going to keep searching until they find an answer. And when they find that answer, usually they stop searching. Um, you don't want to know it or be, really focused on the competition, but it's really important to know, what is my customer journey like? I think I'm going over many things here. So I think I'll go back to something that's really important. It's like, secret shop your business. Secret shop your business at 10 p.m., secret shop it during business hours, before work, secret shop your business. Understand, what are your customers experiencing now? How hard is it for them to work with you? How hard is it for them to get an answer? Make it easy for the customer. Make small tweaks and changes. Um, I think with every 5 minutes, I think, what is it? I think it's 50%. I can't remember the statistic, but as you were mentioning,
big
every
number.
5 minutes that passes,
Mm,
your chance in converting that lead, it goes lower and lower. So look at your team's schedule. If you're not willing to hire a vendor to help support you on calls, then what can you do with what you have now to create a better experience for your customers, so you can create immediate satisfaction in
mm,
those points when they might be shopping? Because when you think that they're shopping, there's other times that they're shopping that you have no idea about. So shop your service,
yeah.
um, and make sure that there's some automatic systems put in place so they get that immediate satisfaction when they register on your website, or they have an easy ability to schedule an appointment with your team. But don't make it a hidden tab somewhere. Really look at your website and make sure that you're optimizing it for a customer to easily see it, their attention is drawn to it. um, a lot of times um, a lot of times when somebody comes to our website, even they'll be like, what's the price? I want to know the price. I'd be so happy to help. What it and then kind of going into it. So I think chat is another thing that people are just not using to the fullest capacity. But you got to be able to get that immediate satisfaction for the customer. So shop your service. Know how hard it is to work with your business. Know how hard it is to get an answer or a tech out for somebody,
Yeah.
and reduce those reduce those chains of resistance there.
Yeah, I think that's a very tactical and a very good kind of nugget, which is literally just do it yourself as a customer. Go through the entire journey on different mediums, whether it's phone and chat, and see what it's like. And then it gives you really, really, it's pretty easy to take notes on where are the pain points, what are the, friction points, and then you could just directly address them head on. So I think that's a great takeaway to close. I think my one last thing is that reminds me. Um, there's two examples. There's the one example I heard. I had the pleasure of listening once about a year ago to Jesse Cole, the guy who kind of put together the Savannah Bananas. He was talking about how I could see him speak, and he was talking about he would literally their teams, like when they would have games,
Mhm,
they would just go, they would attend the games like fans. Like they would
mhm,
walk in, they would go to the ticket thing, they would get food, they'd get a drink, whatever it might be, and they would just note down every tiny little thing from when they entered to when they sat down to when they left, and they just used that as a roadmap to then optimize each little thing. And so it sounds so simple. Obviously, most people don't do it, but it really is, I think, it is simple, and it's a thing that you can do pretty much right away. So I think that's great.
yeah, it is, I it's hard to look at those vulnerabilities and be, oh my
Totally.
gosh, this is the kind of experience we're providing. And it's hard to be 24/7. It's hard. It's a grind every single day. Your team is working hard. You're working really hard, making sure that you're meeting ends meet or really meeting those big goals that you've set for yourself. But we have to know when our customers are calling. We
Mhm.
have to know when they're available, and we have to be able to cater to that. We have to be able to really make adjustments so we're there for them and not the competitor. Yes.
100%. Well, Bethany, this was great. Seriously, I really appreciate it. I appreciate you guys having me as well. I appreciate this conversation.
Absolutely. It's been
Uh,
great. Yeah, it was a fun conversation.